Hola chicos y chicas, soy el señor León. En este video voy a presentarles una forma eficaz de conjugar verbos de bota, mejor conocidos como stem changing verbs o los verbos de cambio de raíz. Empecemos. Los verbos generalmente vienen en esta forma. De conjugar un verbo es importante saber las partes del verbo. Before you conjugate a verb, it is important to know the parts of the verb. La primera parte es la raíz. First part of the verb is the stem or root. That's the part of the verb that always stays the same for regular verbs. And I stated for regular verbs. And the second part is the ending, which actually are in AR, ER, and IR. That's the ending. And that will be subject to change to match the subjects in the sentences. So the stem or root is a part of the verb that expresses the meaning. The ending of the verb agree with the number and person you are talking about. I usually call them the subject in the sentence. It is also states the time and mood. Spanish regular verbs maintain and follow conjugation patterns depending on the endings, AR, ER, or IR. The verb endings are for AR, O as a, amos as an. ER, O es e, hemos es en. IR, O es e, hemos is en. When we're talking about boot verbs, stem changing verbs, o los verbos de cambio de raíz, como decimos en español, es importante saber cuáles formas van a cambiar. It is important to know which forms are going to change. As you notice in the boot, the yo, the tú, usted, él, ella, and ustedes, ellos, and ellas are inside the boot. Those are the ones that are subject to change, while the nosotros and nosotras forms, vosotros and vosotras forms, stay out of the box, stay out of the boot. So that means that actually in this case, the nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, and vosotras forms will follow the same pattern as all regular verbs. Remember, they follow the same pattern of regular verbs. You will only change the spelling for the yo, the tú, usted, él, ella, ustedes, ellos, and ellas. There are several stem changing verbs. For this purpose, we are going to work on E to IE verbs. The verb pensar, to think, to plan, belongs to a special group called stem changing verbs. In these verbs, the E of the stem changes to IE in all its forms except nosotros and vosotros, just as I mentioned it earlier. These verbs are sometimes called shoe verbs or but verbs because the forms that take a stem change display the shape of a shoe or a boot in the chart. For my classes, I may highlight or have the students change the background of the yo, the tú, usted, él, ella forms, just to ensure that actually those are the forms that will change. For example, let's look at the verb venir. Venir is similar to the verb tener, and we covered tener earlier. Notice that actually for the yo form, it doesn't change to IE, but instead it only changes, it adds a G in between the N and the O, vengo. But for all other forms, changes to vienes, viene, venimos, venís, vienen. Again, the nosotros and vosotros forms are conjugated like normal regular verbs. Sometimes it is important to align or to make verbs alike, which verbs follow the same pattern and are conjugated the same way. That way it creates less confusion. I pair venir to tener because they are very similar except for the nosotros and vosotros form. ER and IR share the same endings except for the nosotros and vosotros forms. So let's conjugate tener for a moment. Perfecto. Excelente. Notice that for the verb tener is tengo, tienes, tiene, tienen. The nosotros and vosotros forms did not change stem at all. Let's move on. The verb pensar, notice that actually I have IE in parentheses. This is telling you that that's the part that you have to change for the E after the letter P. Pienso, piensas, piensa. Pensamos, pensáis, piensan. Your teacher may tell you, conjugate X verb. In this case, conjugate pensar. And may introduce a group of verbs with similar conjugation forms of verbs that actually are like pensar. For example, cerrar, to close, follows the same pattern as pensar. Try to do it. Begin with the yo form, tú form, usted, él, ella form. Muy bueno. Check your answers. Let's do the next one. Empezar. Same process as pensar. Let's try encender. Sometimes my students will ask me, which E should I change? Notice that encender has 3 E's. One that begins the word, one that is in the center of the word, and the other that tells you it is an ER verb. Well, in this case, you cannot change the beginning letter because it will change the meaning of the word. So you have to go to the last E before the ending. In this case, the E that follows the letter C. Perfecto. Excelente. Muy bueno. Querer. Fantástico. Muy bueno. Let's continue. Keep in mind that actually you can also pause the video to verify your spelling. It is always important to verify the spelling in your words because one little mistake can make an answer wrong. Siento, sientes, siente. Sentimos, sentís, sienten. Preferir. Again, remember, the first E cannot change because it will change the meaning of the word. Prefiero, prefieres, prefiere. Preferimos, preferís, prefieren. Now that you have conjugated the verbs, you may start your activities. I'm not going to give you the answers, or will I? Well, let's find out. When you are going to conjugate or fill in the blanks, first thing that you have to remember is what are you going to do? How are you going to find the conjugation form that is correct for the blanks? This is simple. Identify the subject in the sentence first. Once you have identified the subject in the sentence, link a subject pronoun to the subject in the sentence. And once you have found out the subject pronoun that is aligned with the subject of the sentence, then you can actually give the conjugation form appropriately. So let's find out first the subject in the sentence. Uno, Roberto y Raúl. Dos, mis primos y yo. Tres, yo. Just remember, read the instructions. Lee las instrucciones. 4, una amiga. 5, Julia y Esther. 6, tú. Fantástico. Excelente. Let's begin again with the next activity. Martín y Andrea. here I made a mistake. Don't worry about it. I messed it up. So I added a subject pronoun. Oh no, I added the subject for Elvira. Elvira is not the subject in the sentence, so don't worry about it. So in this case, the subject still Martin y Andrea. There was a typo and I forgot to change it. See, I'm subject to be not perfect. I am a perfectionist. I claim to be, but I'm not perfect. Andrea, Martín, ellos. It is okay to make mistakes, but never leave a blank answer. That is the worst mistake you can make when conjugating verbs or filling any information. Don't leave any blanks. Otros amigos, Rafael, Leandra y Sara, Graciela, notice that for Graciela, I have two blanks after. And if the subject in the sentence doesn't change, you still have to fill out the information with the same conjugation forms. If you change it, one of the responses may be wrong. And again, link the subject pronouns to link the subject in the sentence with a subject pronoun before you conjugate the verbs. David, él, tú. Fantástico. Fantastic. This is step one. And keep in mind, even though I am a native to the language, that doesn't make me 100% perfect. Language is a life learning experience. We constantly learning. And I constantly train myself to provide you with the best knowledge that I can in the classroom and outside the classroom. Your learning is a priority for me. I take pride of my language and I take pride of my teaching. I love teaching and I love you all. And that's perhaps one of the reasons why I haven't retired yet, because I do like to teach. Right. Now, before I send you to conjugate the verbs, let's go back and review what subject pronouns you choose. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds, and then I'm going to go back and verify that you did it right. Then I will end the conversation, because that's how I feel. I don't feel like recording these videos just for fun. I do have fun when I am in the classroom. And I am more natural because I am out of the box. I am in my comfort zone. Recording videos is not my thing, but I do it because it is a way to help you understand certain materials when you are not in the classroom. Let's check your answer for the subject pronouns. Keep in mind, that's not what you have been asked to. This is what I am recommending before you give me the conjugation forms in the blanks. Let's go back to actividad 9. Roberto y Raúl. Let's find the subject pronouns that you will use. Manos a la obra. Hands on task. ¿Listos? Ready? Acción. 1. Ellos. 2. Nosotros. 3. Yo. 4, ella. 5, ellas. 6, tú. Actividad 10. 1, ellas. 2, ella. 3, él. 4, ellos. 5, ellos. 6, él. 7, ellas. 8, ella. 9, ella. 10, él. 11, él.